Hi, my name is Fiona Smart. Celia and I are preparing a debate for you to contemplate within your tutorial groups. I'm proposing the motion, and the motion is that educational developers do the dirty work of the university. So on what basis am I making that argument? Well, it's well known that the majority of educational developers are female, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are many other occupational groups where it's more female dominated than male dominated. There are lots of issues and challenges perhaps to debate, but that's not where I'm going today. So let's take as read the fact that there are more women in educational development roles than men. I think what is interesting is the gendering of that role, and we can understand the gendering of the educational development role by looking at the language that we use. So I'm interested in the fact that very rarely will you find educational developers talking about the fact that they lead something, that they are agreeing something on behalf of the university. The role is much more to do with one of service, and again I don't think there's a problem with that, but it's about facilitating, making things happen, supporting, being there for people, listening, taking time. These are far more gendered towards the role of women than they are towards the role of men. Does that matter? Maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't matter, but I think us understanding that the language that we use actually matters is an important thing. So perhaps one of the things for you to do if you are working in an educational development role is have a look at your mission statement, or have a look at terms of reference that exist for groups that you work on and with. Just have a look at the words that I use to describe that which you do. So linked to the language, one of the things that it's true in the Scottish context, and it may not be true in the Canadian context or wider afield, but the names that we give to the units that hold within them educational developers are rarely called educational development units, and I find that really quite curious. I, for example, work in the Department of Learning and Teaching Enhancement, so it doesn't actually say that I'm an educational developer, and my role title doesn't say that I'm an educational developer. But is my role one which supports the academic community in students' best interests? Yes, it is. So why are those units hidden? Why do we use a language that almost disguises where these units sit and contributes to an invisibility? And there is something in there to do with the work of the educational developer, whether it can and should be made visible, or actually maybe when we're doing it right, when we're getting it right, nobody actually realises it was us that were part of the success stories within the university. So in terms of where the units are found, that tells us something more about the invisibility of the role, or perceived invisibility of the role. These things are up for debate, that's why we're actually engaging in this subject. So why is it that educational development units are not actually called that? I think in many places in Scotland, there are 19 universities in Scotland, there are a number of institutions in Canada, and then obviously further worldwide. Look and see how many of them actually call themselves educational development units or departments. Mine is the Department of Learning and Teaching Enhancement. It doesn't say that that's what that the business of our work is educational development, and some people might say that it actually isn't the work. So language matters. We've talked about the gendering of the role. It's not just that it's female dominated, it's the gendering of the role as made clear by the language that is used to describe that which we do, the curiosity of the hidden nature of the units, which makes us quite hard to find. And that links with when things go well, do people recognise that it was us, or actually is that not the point? Is our point to be invisible and to support the business of the university? But that comes on to dirty work. So this debate was really exploring the whole idea of whether or not educational developers do the dirty work of the university. And I need to take you here in a sidestep, if that's okay. The work that really started getting people think about dirty work came out of the nursing literature not primarily, but that, not exclusively, but primarily. And what it looked at is proximity to the body. So if you think about nurses who are involved in intensive care, they are working with the body, but there's machinery that is involved in supporting that patient, and the degree of closeness is very dissimilar to that if you're working in elderly care, where it's much more likely you'll be working with the body to actually help clean the body, to possibly help somebody in relation to bodily functions. And children as well, people who work with children, it's generally seen as that is a dirty work, certainly much more akin to what women do anyway. So the closer you are to the body, the less well received, well revered that work is going to be. So clean work and dirty work. If we pull that idea into educational development, and that's what I'd love you to do within the debating forums, is, well, where is the dirty work of the university? For that, maybe we need to think about where are the problems. And I'm not for 1 minute saying that students are problems, but problems that problems can arise in relation to, for example, the student experience. So when it is that the student experience is seen to be not what it should be, the people who go in to sort it, to manage it in those quiet, gendered ways, supporting, facilitating, making things happen, but not leading, remember the gendering of the language, are often the educational developers. But they go in and they do that supporting, developmental facilitation role and step back out again. When it works and it's successful, it will be rare for educational developers to be recognised as the people who made the difference. However, when it didn't work, it may well be that the dirty work of the university was seen as being unresolved, and a blame may actually sit with educational developers, whether that's fair or not fair. I realise that these are big things that I'm saying, that's the point of this debate. I think the final thing, which relates to both the gendering and the notion of dirty work, is that the educational developers, there isn't a qualification. There are, of course, organisations that represent educational developers, but you don't get a master's degree in educational development unless I'm very wrong on that. We do have this course that we've prepared for you because what we recognise is a need, but there aren't qualifications. You could actually say it isn't a profession in its own right, that it isn't a discipline, although actually, interestingly, it does have quite a substantial body of knowledge. Again, play with that idea. So we've talked about language in what is a female-dominated occupational group, talked about the hidden nature of educational development units and the fact that they're often not called that, talked about this notion of dirty work, and I'd like you to think about, well, where is the dirty work of the university and who does it? Is it educational developers? So lots of thoughts for you to explore, no right answers, but in closing I would want to say one thing. I am actually a nurse, I have engaged in dirty work, I believe it to be incredibly important, whether that is direct engagement with body fluids or not. I'm also an educational developer and I'm equally proud of that. Thank you for listening.